In a quiet Nigerian town called Greenvale, where people still greeted one another at sunrise and the evenings were filled with the sound of crickets and distant laughter, lived a humble bricklayer named Daniel Harris. Daniel was not rich, he was not powerful, but he was a good man. Every morning before the sun fully rose, Daniel woke up, said a short prayer, and prepared for work. His hands were rough from years of lifting blocks and mixing cement, yet those same hands were gentle when they touched his family. He lived in a small, peaceful house with his wife Grace Harris, their only child Samuel, and their loyal dog Buddy. Their home was not big. The paint on the walls had faded with time. The roof sometimes leaked during heavy rain, but love lived there. Grace was a quiet, hard-working woman. Every morning after Daniel left for work, she prepared small food items, rice, beans, pepper, oil, and took them to the local market to sell. Whatever she made, she used wisely. Samuel, their son, attended primary school in the town. He was bright, curious, and full of questions about the world. And Buddy? Buddy was more than a dog. He was family. Every evening, when Daniel returned from work tired and dusty, Buddy would run toward him, wagging his tail so hard his whole body shook. Samuel would shout, "Daddy is back!" and Grace would step outside, smiling, thankful to see her husband return safely. That small house was filled with peace. Far away from Greenvale, in the heart of the city, lived a man whose life was the complete opposite. His name was Mr. Richard Cole. Richard was the CEO of a very large company. He was born into wealth, generational wealth. His late father had owned lands, buildings, and companies across different towns and cities. Richard lived in a massive mansion with tall gates and security guards. His garage was filled with expensive cars. His nights were filled with loud music, alcohol, and women who came and went. He had everything money could buy, except peace. Richard was rude, proud, and careless. He spoke to his workers without respect and believed money gave him the right to do anything. He had a personal assistant named Michael, who managed his schedule, and a wealthy sister named Catherine Cole, who was strict, sharp-tongued, and always thinking of business. Richard had a serious heart condition. Doctors warned him many times, "Sir, your heart is weak. If you don't stop drinking and partying, it will fail." But Richard only laughed. "I didn't inherit this wealth to live like a monk," he said. "I will enjoy my life." In Greenvale, there was a church built many years ago. That church stood on land that once belonged to Richard's family. His father had allowed the church to be built there, and over time, it became a place of hope. Every day, poor people came to that church to eat. Widows, orphans, the hungry. One day, Richard decided he wanted the land back. "This land belongs to my family," he said coldly. "I want it vacated." When Pastor James, the church leader, announced the news to the members, the church was filled with cries. In Greenvale, there was a church built many years ago. That church stood on land that once belonged to Richard's family. His father had allowed the church to be built there, and over time, it became a place of hope. Every day, poor people came to that church to eat. Widows, orphans, the hungry. One day, Richard decided he wanted the land back. "This land belongs to my family," he said coldly. "I want it vacated." When Pastor James, the church leader, announced the news to the members, the church was filled with cries. People protested, they begged, they prayed, but by law, the land belonged to Richard. Their hearts were broken. That same week, destiny moved in silence. One night, after leaving a nightclub drunk and careless, Richard collapsed. His heart failed. He was rushed to the hospital and slipped into a coma. Doctors tried everything. 2 days later, tragedy struck Greenvale. Daniel Harris had a terrible accident at work. A heavy structure collapsed, crushing him. He was rushed to the hospital, barely breathing. Grace sat beside him, holding his hand, crying silently. Samuel stood nearby, confused and scared. Daniel knew his time was short. With his last strength, he whispered, "If my heart can save someone, let it be used." He looked at Grace and added, "Please don't collect money from the person who receives it." And with that, Daniel Harris passed away. Grace screamed. Samuel cried. Buddy waited at the door that night, but Daniel never came home. In another hospital room, Richard Cole was dying. He needed a heart urgently. Daniel's heart was a perfect match. The transplant was done, and Richard lived. Months later, Richard woke up, but something was different. He no longer felt the urge to drink. The noise of clubs irritated him. Women no longer interested him. He became quiet. He started noticing small things, how his workers looked tired, how people spoke when they were afraid, how kindness felt better than power. His heart felt heavy, like it remembered something. One Saturday, he remembered the church land. Without his assistant, without his luxury car, he rode a bike to Greenvale. When he met Pastor James, he surprised everyone. "The church will not leave," Richard said calmly. "I will rebuild it into a great cathedral. From today, the poor will eat here every day." The church members cried, not in pain this time, but in joy. As Richard was about to leave, a small boy and a dog walked into the church. Suddenly, the dog ran toward him. Buddy wagged his tail wildly and stood beside Richard, refusing to leave. Richard bent down, confused. "What is your name?" he asked the boy. "Samuel," the boy replied. Richard's chest tightened. He followed them home. That visit changed everything. Richard began visiting Greenvale often. He never came like a rich man. He wore simple clothes. He walked instead of driving. Sometimes he carried small bags from the market for Grace, like an ordinary man with nothing to prove. One day, Catherine confronted him. "Why are you always going to that town?" she asked. "What are you looking for?" Richard placed his hand on his chest. "Something is missing in my heart," he replied. "I pray you find what you are looking for some day," she said. "After all, he is not a baby." She walks out from him, hoping for the best for him. Grace never asked him many questions. Whenever they are together, all she knew was that his name was Richard and that he said he was struggling to survive, just like everyone else. One evening, as they sat outside her small house, watching Samuel play with Buddy, Grace finally asked, "Richard, what do you really do for a living?" Richard looked away for a long moment. "I don't have much," he said quietly. "I lost many things in life. I'm just trying to start again." Grace nodded. "I understand," she replied softly. "Sometimes peace is better than having plenty." Those words stayed in Richard's heart. From that day, he respected Grace even more. Their friendship grew slowly. Richard helped Samuel with homework, teaching him patience and confidence. Samuel began calling him Uncle Richard. Sometimes Samuel would fall asleep on his chest while listening to stories. Each time that happened, Richard's heart would ache, not in pain, but in recognition. Grace noticed it. She noticed how gentle he was with her son, how he never raised his voice, how Buddy followed him everywhere, as if guarding something precious. Still, she did not know the truth. Richard struggled deeply. Many nights he sat alone asking himself, "How do I tell her that I am not the poor man she thinks I am? Will she look at me differently? Will she think I lie to deceive her?" So he remained silent. He wanted Grace to love the man, not the money. Years passed. Love grew quietly, without promises, without pressure. One evening, after Samuel had gone to sleep, Richard spoke with a trembling voice. "Grace, I want to be part of your life, and Samuel's life. Not as a visitor, not as a helper, but as family." Grace's eyes filled with tears. "I never planned to love again," she said, "but peace followed you into my life." The truth came out one day, by accident. Grace traveled to the city to buy goods for her business. While walking through a large building, she froze. A giant portrait on the wall showed Richard Cole, CEO of a major company. Her heart stopped. "This cannot be him," she whispered. But it was. When she returned to Greenvale, she confronted him. "Richard, who are you really?" He knelt before her. "I am wealthy," he admitted. "I lied because I was afraid. Afraid you would love my money and not my heart." Grace cried. Not because he was rich, but because he had been honest too late. After days of silence and prayer, Grace spoke. "You did not come to me as a rich man," she said. "You came as peace. That is what matters." Richard wept. When they finally married, Richard made a powerful declaration before everyone. "Samuel is not my stepson," he said. "He is my son." He officially took Samuel as his own, by name, by love, and by law. And Samuel, smiling through tears, called him Daddy for the first time. Buddy wagged his tail. The heart was home, because a heart never forgets where it once belonged. Moral lessons 1. A good heart is more valuable than wealth. 2. Kindness never dies. 3. Pride leads to destruction, but humility brings healing. 4. Pride leads to destruction, but humility brings healing. 5. Love can grow from pain and loss.
Guys, I want to beg you to follow, like, share, and comment on my page. Thank you for everyone who have been there from day one. God bless you all.